So, Anirban, the topic for today is digital energy grid. Just help me understand why now is the right time to adopt something like this.
Yeah, just look around you. Look at the amount of demand that is coming into the market. We have all the equipments getting electrified. You have electric vehicles, you have electric cooking systems, you have electric heating and cooling systems. There is a huge amount of demand coming into the system. Of course, and you then have the data centers. Along with that, on the other side, you have so many of new supplies coming in. You have rooftop solar, you have small biochar plants, people are installing community solars. Now, the grid that was there of yesterday, they were not designed to handle this kind of entropy. The grid was supposed to handle a lot of predictable coming from the top, all predictable loads. Now suddenly there are a million of such small supply and demand pockets. So it needs to coordinate. And that's why the time is perfect for now.
The energy systems that we have right now, they have some sort of limitation to kind of tackle this sort of ecosystem.
So there are a lot of innovations happening, of course, in the ecosystem. There are a lot of new type of customer demands coming up. There are new type of customer experiences coming up. People are building new fancy apps. There are very nice consumer experiences of EV charging. There are new flexibility platforms in the market. There is this new whole concept of doing peer-to-peer trading. I can sell energy to you, right? But all these innovations that are happening in certain pockets. If I have one electric vehicle and a battery in that, I can use the same battery to participate in a flexibility market. I can use the same battery to charge from any of the chargers, any of the public chargers, or I can use the same battery to support my house load in the time of a crisis. But if I have to do that, probably I'll have to install 4 or 5 different applications. That's what is limiting the market. This whole development in silos and all these systems not talking to each other is creating the problem.
Now, let's dumb down the statement that you give. I just want to give our audience an example of how that works in real life.
Yeah, so let's take an example of EV charging, my most favorite example. In India, there are almost 85 charge point operators. You see this all people who are setting up this red and green charge points, right? There are 85 of them in the market. Now, all of them have a digital app. Along with them, there are multiple aggregators in the market. So if I, as a electric vehicle user, I have to go from Bangalore to Mysore, I don't know which 5 applications I should install to ensure that I have coverage of all public charges between Bangalore to Mysore. So it's a very confusing state for me. What I end up doing is probably using 3 of them, 300 of them, 30 of them, we don't know. But we know that the market that we are operating at is very suboptimal than what ideally it should have been.
Got it. So what you are trying to say is digital energy grid can help solve all of this? Can you kind of relate and connect
Yes.
these two?
So now imagine that was the world of yesterday, where you have all these 85 or 100 applications. You are trying to be onboarded to all of them, trying to figure out where the chargers are. Now imagine a world with digital energy grid. In the world with digital energy grid, you don't have to get yourself onboarded to all these 85 applications. You come from the application of your choice. You install the app that you like, you install the app that you generally use, maybe a Google Map, maybe a WhatsApp. But the service providers on the other side are connected to this digital layer. So digital energy grid is nothing but that one digital infrastructure where every energy system can plug in. So imagine all the service providers plugging in from the other side and you coming onto the system from the app of your choice. You can find all this without hopping different platforms. So that's what digital energy grid helps you in solving.
Got it. So I would like to understand, if you look at the other side of the problem, since you mentioned about EV charging and EV chargers, how does the ecosystem look like? How do the examples look like on the supply side or maybe upstream side, grid side, something like that?
Very interesting.
Yeah.
So the phenomena that I kind of explained right now, we call that interoperability, right?
Got it.
How can we bring in interoperability in the current digital systems? Now, interoperability doesn't exist only on the consumer side of things. It exists across the value chain. Now, you start from the generation side of things, come down to the distribution, come down to the demand pockets. Interoperability is needed across the value chain. Now, if I had to give you an example, maybe a bit upstream, let's talk about demand flexibility. I, as a utility provider of one city, I want to create a flex market of whatever XYZ megawatt, maybe 5 megawatts, because anyway the mandates are coming in. In India, the regulation asks you to put 1.5% of your last year's peak demand as a flexibility market. So if I have to do that, I need to talk to a set of appliances. I need to talk to the air conditioners of the room. I have to talk to a set of EV charging units that you have installed in your house. I also have to talk to probably a set of different type of consumer and industrial loads. So there are many systems, right? And all these systems have their own digital ecosystem. So if I have to talk to all these different 100 type of systems, I have to go and figure out integration with all 100 of these,
Got it.
right?
Yeah.
That becomes very difficult for me. Now, if I appoint a market operator, if I appoint somebody called an aggregator in the market, they also have to go through the same pain. But if I can bring all these digital clouds to one common, if they can talk in one language, get connected to one common infrastructure, then it becomes very easy, right? I can do real-time transactions with them. I can figure out what are the offerings. I can give them real-time incentives and expect actions from them. So the whole idea is, wherever there are multiple digital systems fragmented and siloed, can we bring in one interoperable network where all these energy systems can plug in?
Got it. The digital energy grid is a lot about digital communications between these platforms, programs, and apps and innovators. Now, I want to understand, like, is this just about technology or architecture or specs, or like, is there something more to it also?
Ideally, technology is just 5% of it. So if you see the whole idea of getting a digital infrastructure out in the market, there is of course a technology which binds all these things together. You have standards, you have specifications, you have softwares, and so on. But on top of that, you have a whole layer of policy and governance, which means if you have the right protocols, if you have the right infrastructure, if you have the right network, how does the society behave on top of that? How does the user talk to the other user? Are there any guardrails? Are there any regulations which stops them? Or are there any policies which kind of influence their behaviors? So there is a whole layer of governance and policy. On top of that, there is another layer of market innovations. So all the people who are building applications and softwares, they generally operate from this layer. And what they take benefit of is the bottom spec layer, and of course play by the rules of the governance and policy layer, and then innovate on top. So with all these three layers coming together, then only you can have a change of that scale.
Got it. So, do you think it should be a national rollout of all these things put together, or like how does it go? Like, how does the country kind of adopt this vision?
Not necessarily. I mean, in India, we are seeing a national rollout coming from right from the top, saying that okay, we need to innovate a lot on the consumer side of things. Of course, there is a competition motivation as well. How can I create a market which is equally competitive for any of the new entrants? But that's not necessarily the only setup. You can create digital energy grid at the level of a neighborhood. Let's say I want to set up a community solar or a community battery along with 500 other neighbors. I can do that. Digital energy grid helps in doing that. You can set it up at a city level as well. Imagine a city trying to achieve their net zero program, and they have so many millions of supply and demand assets to kind of coordinate. They can take help of a DEG infrastructure, and of course at a national level, you can do the
Got it. So this looks more like a India problem. Is this something also which you're seeing like globally? Is there any global adoption? Are people talking about it? How is it at a global scale?
This is probably one of the problems that we have seen is equally relevant to all parts of the world. You go to the westernmost countries or you stay in the eastern pockets, it's the same problem. You have digital systems. People are under the pressure of achieving the net zero goals. You have a deadline, you have a target which comes with a deadline. And to achieve all those targets, you need a lot of coordination and orchestration. You go to any parts of the world, you will find this problem equally existing. We have a lot of conversations around the UK. We have a lot of conversations around the Brazilian ecosystem. The only difference that we see in all these ecosystems are in terms of priorities. So while India may prioritize on the consumer side of things, when I go to a Brazil, they may look at it from a tariff design or a competitive market kind of a side. So the market policies, the market priorities, the market realities may change, but it is equally relevant to all parts of the world. And that's why we keep on saying that digital energy grid is a global vision. It has a ambitious vision that how an ideal interoperable energy system should work, but of course it will need calibrated action, right? I mean, depending on the context of India, depending on the context of Brazil, you have to adopt.
How are your efforts evolving over time? So from what I understand, the paper released around a year ago, and the efforts would have been started almost a year and a half, maybe 2 years back. So help me understand, what is your strategy in terms of helping the world kind of evolve with this vision, or maybe adopt something like this at a global stage?
As we speak, it started almost around 2 years back with one particular use case, the EV charging use case, and that's why that's the most favorite use case of mine. But since then, we have realized that interoperability is not a topic only on the demand side. It's equally relevant across the chain. And also, when we started, we were mostly thinking about transactional interoperability. How can two systems transact? But with time, we also realized transaction is not the only function that we have to solve for. We have to solve for many other building very horizontal fundamental capabilities. Like, how do you address an asset? If there is an asset lying, how do you digitally address that? How do you digitally reach that? So there is all this identification, addressability, verifiable credentials, of course, transactions. There are so many building blocks that we have to solve for. So since 2023, when we started working on this topic, we realized that these are the building blocks that we have to solve for. 2025, actually 6 months back, 6 and 7 months back, we released this whole vision paper of digital energy grid. A lot has happened since then. Of course, India has picked up the whole EV charging network under the guidance of Ministry of Heavy Industries, and of course the very credible leadership of NBSL. We are constituting this pan-India EV charging network on DEG. On the other hand, India Energy Stack is taking a lot of its learnings and inputs from digital energy grid. Of course, it has many other things to take care of. It has to take care of the acceleration. It has to take care of the adoption in the market. So there are multiple blocks to it, but all these things are happening over time. We are also having a lot of conversations in the, like I mentioned, Brazil and the Great Britain, those side of places, because on that side of the world, there is a big problem of separation of the demand pocket and the supply pocket, where you have a lot of offshore wind, onshore wind. Generally, the demand pockets are generally far away in terms of land mass. They are very far away from the supply pockets. So they are dealing with a completely different kind of a problem. We have a very distributed supply and demand, but that's not the case for those parts of the world.
Understood.
So the conversations are
Yeah. So like from the limited knowledge that I have, I understand there are a lot of technical architecture related to EV charging. Since you mentioned EV charging a lot, there is OCPP, OCPI. I think from what my experience tells me, these are the kind of protocols that all these DERs kind of use to talk to each other.
Right.
So just help our viewers understand what is the difference between these kind of energy protocols that have been there for almost decades to something like DEG, which is like maybe a year or two old. What is the key difference between these two?
So don't think of DEG as a replacement of the currently existing protocols. See, the existing protocols are solving a purpose, and they're solving it really well. They have the very purpose specific ontologies, taxonomies, which works really well. Those have been really thought through because it has developed over time, right? But if I have to take an analogy, it's like the JPEGs and the MP4s standards that exist in the market. Let's say I have to I have to send you an image, or I have to send you a song, right? I'll use one of those JPEGs or the MP3s of the world, right? But when I transfer it to you, I'm probably going to take help of the internet, which is built of the TCP/IP, HTML, HTTPS, and so on, right? So imagine DEG at that layer. It helps in binding all these existing protocols together. It doesn't replace it. It rather creates a very low-level, over-encompassing layer which binds all these pre-existing protocols together, so that the same asset which was participating in EV charging through OCPI, or participating in a flex market through OpenADR, or participating in something else through one of the IEEE standards, now can do all this through the same layer, and it doesn't have to do it 3 different times.
So Anirban, what is the key message that you would like to give us to the viewers also?
So for the viewers, I like to say, when you go through the digital energy grid vision, it may feel like it's a bit overwhelming. It's a whole of system design, but pick up your use case. Let's start from there and build on top. Let's build a more cheaper, cleaner, and inclusive energy system. Thank you.